educated people, you have all types of people. So depending on the salary, there can be low salary or higher salary, they can be employed or unemployed, there can be different classifications. So only by taking 20 people or 10 people you cannot say that this is a representative sample. So for that you actually need to have a larger size. Okay, so just for the example. So so if it is very complex, then the taking the sample is also very complex. So steps in sample design. So this is something that we did not discuss in the last class. So what are the different steps? So first thing is that so basically you have to understand a number of things before you design your sample. So you have to understand you have to pay attention on the following points. So first point is the type of universe. Now when I say this universe, so in the research methodology, actually universe means population. Okay, it doesn't mean the physical universe. So all items in any field of inquiry constitute a universe or population. So universe or population are interchangeably used in research methodology. Okay, so whenever I say universe, it means a population. It doesn't mean that entire universe. So the universe can be defined. Means the universe can be finite or infinite. Okay, so basically with this line, I can say that actually this using the word universe is not appropriate. So the population can actually be finite or infinite. What does it mean? So if it is a finite population, that means you can measure it or you can count it or you have the idea. Okay, it can also be infinite. Infinite means you cannot measure or you cannot count. Okay, if I give you 2 kg of any material, and if I say that you take a or any quantity of any material, and if I say that you take a sample from this material, then definitely you will have this idea of this quantity. Okay, it can be a 2 kg or it can be a 3 kg or it can be like 10 kg, you can measure it. So this becomes a finite population or finite universe or finite bulk. Okay, but it can also be infinite. So infinite so for example, the for the finite one, if you have the population of a city or the number of workers in a factory or the number of employees in any organization, all these are the finite examples. But if you want to see that how many stars are there in the sky or how many planets are there in this universe, or if I just say something which you cannot actually count, for example, how many listeners are there of a specific radio program. Okay, some radio program is there and how many people are listening to it. So it'll be difficult to say something exactly about these type of information, these type of data, right? So for example, now we have this thing where we can say that the number of views in the YouTube videos. So with that we can count the number of views. But again, in reality, we cannot actually count the number of people who have watched the videos, because it is possible that some video is being played and the entire family is watching. Okay, so it will be counted as one view, but actually there are maybe 10 people are watching at the same time. So these are just examples of the finite and infinite. So finite means something that you can count and infinite means you cannot count. So this is something that you have to pay attention, that what is the type of universe, what is the type of population actually. The second thing is what is the sampling unit. Okay, sampling unit uh, means whether it is geographical unit or it's a construction unit. So geographical unit means from where you are actually taking the sample. So whether it is a geographical unit, that means it is a state or district or a village, okay, or any maybe a country, or it is a construction unit such as the apartments or house or flat. Okay, so these things are also important depending on the type of study that you are performing. In these type of the technical analysis, actually this doesn't make much sense. But if you are doing some kind of questionnaire or some kind of uh, the population study, then it becomes important. It can also be a social unit such as the family or club or a school or college or university. It can also be individual, that means the number individually the people. So the researcher will have to decide one or more such units that he wants to select for his study. So this is the second term, second thing. The third thing is a source list, and this is actually very important. So source list means the sampling frame. Sampling frame, that means you have to have a lot of idea about the entire population that you have, okay, of your entire universe. If there are if you want to take a sample of a district, okay, then you must have the data of each and every person in the district, right? So you should not just have the numbers, but you have more information, such as what is their age, okay, uh, uh, for example, male and female, the young age or older age, or the child, how many children are there, from 0 to 2 years, 2 to 12 years, right? So all those things you should have some idea. So you should have very clear idea of this source list, and this is actually called the sampling frame. That means you should have all the data of your entire population, from which you have to draw the sample. So it contains the names of all items of the universe, and if it is not available, then you have to actually prepare it. You have to create the list, right? Because then only you will be able to take the sample. Otherwise, how will you take the representative sample? So such list should be comprehensive, correct, reliable, and appropriate. So all these things are actually there, and it is extremely important for the source list to be as representative of as the population as possible. So actually means you should have all the data. So this source list is another important thing. The next is the size of sample. So this is again very important thing. So the example that I was giving, that if I say that 20 people you have to select, then it will be very difficult to select 20 people that will represent the characteristics of the entire population. But then how many people you should select? So that is something that is a big question actually. So that is something that you have to determine, that what should be the size of sample. You might have seen that if you are performing some kind of microscopy analysis, then they say that very small amount of sample is needed. Okay, maybe you take a very small amount sample, maybe 1 gram or 2 grams, or depending on the analysis, depending on the microscope you are using, or if you are using some other instrument, then if you are doing some kind of some other characterization methods, then maybe less than 5 gram. These type of specifications are needed. So the size of the sample is also very important, and if you are doing some population study, then you have to be very careful in selecting the sample, because it should represent the characteristics of the entire population. So this refers to the number of size to be selected from the universe to constitute a sample. This is a major problem, because it should neither be excessively large nor too small. If it is very large, then it will be very difficult to perform any kind of analysis. If it is very small, then again it will be difficult, because it will not give you enough data. So it should be actually optimum. Okay, so what is optimum? So optimum means it should meet all your requirements of the efficiency or representativeness, reliability, and flexibility. Okay, so for example, if you are doing some kind of analysis, and if I say that less approximately 5 gram of sample is needed, but if you bring like 20 gram, then it's of no use for me. And if you bring 1 gram, then it will be actually too less. But if it is like 3 to 7 grams, then maybe I can use it, right? So something around the requirement. So that should represent your size of the sample. The next parameter is the parameters of interest. Okay, so that means what you want to study actually. Okay, what are the things that what type of a study you want to perform. So you have to consider the question of the specific population parameters which are of your interest. Okay, so you may be interested in some kind of a special characteristics. For example, if I say that in this sample, if I want to see if I want to do the microscopic analysis, then I may be interested in the structure of this sample. Okay, if there are drops, if it's a emulsion, then I may be interested in the droplet size and their distribution. Okay, so you should have some idea that what you want to study actually. So that is also a very important thing in the sampling design. The next is a budgetary constraint. That means you should have sufficient money so for performing your analysis. So it means that you know uh, if I have, for example, if one microscopy slot is costing me like 1,000 rupees, Okay, so I cannot simply go and do it like 50 times because that will cost me 50,000 rupees. Okay, I can do it for a couple of times depending on the budget. So how much money do I have? What is the budget? And then the sampling procedure. So sampling procedure, that means how you do this. So taking again this example means how you want to analyze this. Okay, what is the type of sample and whether it is meeting the requirement or not. So what is the technique that you are using in this? So all these things actually you have to decide first in the sample design, and then you can actually design the sample. The next is the cause of incorrect inferences. So inferences means incorrect conclusions or incorrect observations. Okay, so incorrect conclusions or something like that. So the cause of incorrect inferences. Someone wants to join the class. Yes. Okay, so the cause of incorrect inferences means what can cause the error in your analysis. So there can be two types. One is a systematic bias and another is a sampling error. So systematic bias is something which actually you cannot simply remove. Okay, and you have to be very strategic about removing this type of error. So, systematic bias results from the errors in the sampling procedure. Okay, so if you have some error in the sampling procedure, then this type of systematic bias occurs. And even if you change the size of the sample, if you reduce or increase the size of the sample, then you cannot remove this systematic bias. Okay, so this is the error which is related to the sampling procedures. The sampling error is something which actually you can remove by increasing the size of the sample. So for example, if I have to take, if there are 10,000 people and I have to take a sample of like 100 people, okay, then it is possible that the 100 people cannot represent the entire population of 10,000 depending on the characteristics or the further strata within these 10,000 people. So it is possible that if I take 5,500 people or if I take 1,000 people, then it will be a very good representation. Okay, so if if this can be done by increasing the size of the sample, okay, then it is a sampling error. Okay, so sampling error can be removed or can be reduced by changing the size of the sample. But the systematic bias is something which you cannot remove by changing the size of the sample. If the systematic bias is there in these 100 people, it will be the, it will actually be more in 500 people and it will be further more in 1,000 people. So what is a systematic bias? Let us see a couple of definitions, a couple of details. So one is the inappropriate sampling frame. Okay, inappropriate sampling frame. So as we discussed in the previous slide, what is a sampling frame? The sampling frame is the source list. Okay. Now, if you don't know about your population, how will you take the sample? Okay. So next, yes. So if you don't know about your population, if you don't have a proper, very good source list, then you cannot take your sample, right? Even if you randomly change the numbers, then you cannot. If you don't know about these 10,000 people, how will you select these 500 or 1,000 people? If there is error in 100, then there will be more error in 1,000, right? Because you have not much information about these 10,000 people. So this inappropriate sampling frame is one cause or one issue. The next is the defective measuring device. Okay, defective measuring device, that means, for example, if you're doing some kind of population study or some kind of behavioral study, then if your questionnaire is wrong, okay, or the interviewer is biased, then you cannot actually uh, get the correct results. Okay, so if you are using some kind of instrument and there is a fault in the instrument itself, okay, then you cannot do anything. Even if your procedure is good, if I say that if I want to take the microscope analysis of this any particular sample, and if there is a fault in the microscope itself, then I cannot do anything, right? Irrespective of the amount of sample, irrespective of taking care of everything, I cannot get the correct result because there is a fault in the instrument itself or the measuring device itself. So that should actually be correct. So these are the examples of systematic bias. Okay, so that means if you don't know about your population, it will lead to the systematic bias. If you don't know about your if there is fault in the measuring device, then it will lead to the systematic bias. The third is the non-respondents. Non-respondents means, suppose you are studying these 10,000 people and you have taken 100 people, and like 40 of them are not responding to your questions or not responding to your um, your questionnaire. Then what will happen? You will not get the correct result from your sample, right? And if you increase the sample size, then there will be more number of non-respondents. There should actually be, means proportional number of non-respondents. So if I say 40% are non-responding, then the 40% of 1000 is actually more. So if you are unable to sample all the individuals initially, okay, then it will lead to a systematic bias. And then actually these last two are very interesting. Okay, so for actually most of the online classes, most of the students are non-respondents, right? So you guys don't respond whether you are listening or not listening, and we cannot also monitor it. So that is a problem. Are you listening? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so see, so in this class actually there is no systematic bias, because at least in this point, because you all are responding. So last, these 2 points are actually very important, very interesting actually. So another is the indeterminacy principle. So indeterminacy principle, what does it mean? It means, one second, I want to remove all these things. Yeah. So indeterminacy principle means, if sometimes we find the individuals act differently when they are kept under observation, and then when they are not kept under the observation. What does it means? It means, suppose if I use some kind of a CCTV camera in a class or in any area, then people will behave differently because they know that they are being watched, they are being monitored. But if I don't use that, people will behave differently because they know that nobody can see them and nobody can observe them, right? The other example could be uh, the for example, if you have a bunch of workers, if you have a number of workers, say 50 workers are there, they are working on some construction site. So you can give them a task that you will be paid on hourly basis or daily basis, okay, and not on your work, not on your amount of work. So if I say that I'll pay the worker 400 rupees per day, okay, then and not of, if I want to build a building, build a house, then I'll not say that irrespective of number of days it will take, I'll pay you 400 rupees per day. So then the worker will actually take more time or more days to build the house, right? Because he's paying, the more time he works, the more amount he will get. But if I say that I'll give you like 40,000 rupees if you build this house, okay, and it doesn't matter whether you build it in 2 days or in 5 days or in 2 months, okay, then you will see that he will try and build it in 2 days, with, of course, with all the other qualities that you prescribe. So if you have defined specific things, then he will try and build it in 2 days, or in maybe 10 days or in a month, depending on what you are asking them to build. Because they will know that once it is done, then you will give them 40,000 rupees, and it doesn't matter whether you do it in a week or you do it in a year, right? So they will try and do it more and more faster way. So this type of contractual works are also there. So another example is, if you are taking a cab, okay, and if you say that to the driver that I'll pay you hourly basis, and I have to go from, say, Ahmedabad to Vadodara, and I'll pay you on hourly basis, then he will take like 3-4 hours to reach there, because he knows that if he will take 5 hours, then he will be paid more. But if I say that I'll pay you 2,000 rupees, okay, then he will take us in like 2 hours, okay, because you know that it doesn't depend on the time. So all these things come under this indeterminacy principle, because in different conditions people behave differently. Okay, it's not just about the amount, but for example, in the case of a CCTV camera, okay, there is no cost or the amount related. But if somebody is watching, then you will behave differently. If we are in a physical class, then maybe students behave differently and the teacher behaves differently. In online class, people behave differently. So that is the indeterminacy principle. And the last one is the natural bias in the reporting of data. So natural bias is something, this is also very interesting. It it means something that uh, you try and try and answer the correct way rather than the real way, or you try and give the correct answer rather than the real answer. Okay, so most of the IQ questions, if you have done any IQ questionnaire, then they will ask that how will you respond in any specific situation. Okay, so suppose somebody is going to off a um, jump off a bridge. Okay, and you are like 300 meters. You might have seen that video, the the railway men saved the child's life, right? सब देखा होगा तुम लोगों ने. So he just immediately he went and he actually picked the child out of the railway track. So how will you respond in such a situation? If somebody is going to jump off a bridge, then how will you do if you are say 300 meters away? Okay, then will you just run and save this person, or will you call the police, or will you try to attract attention of others? Right? If I give you these type of options, then most of people will say that I'll go and I'll try and save this person. Right? I'll immediately run and try and save. For example, if the train is coming and somebody is going to die, I'll run and try and save that person. But in actual condition, it is, you know more than 90% will not do this. They may shout, they may try and get attention, they may uh, call the police, okay, or they may do something, but more than 90% people, they will not just immediately put their life into danger. So the correct means the appropriate answer, which may look, is I'll go and save this person, but actually this may not be a correct answer for most of us, right? So it may be possible that most of us will run and try and save, but most of us will not, and which is actually fine. Okay, so that is a natural bias. Okay, for example, if taxation versus social status. So if I ask you that you know what is your business turnover, and I'm asking you for the taxation purpose, then you will try to show me the less and less amount. Okay, you will say that अरे तो कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा है. But if I say that, okay, I'm asking you because I want to put you some kind of a club or some kind of a social structure, then you will say अरे ये तो बहुत बहुत बढ़िया है, मतलब I have a lot of money, you can put me in the upper class, right? So it depends that what is the purpose. In psychological surveys, people tend to give you the uh, what they think is the correct answer rather than revealing their true feelings. Okay, so this was just an example where it is possible that you will try and give the correct answer rather than actually what will you do. So all these things actually lead to the systematic bias. Okay, now you can understand that why it doesn't matter whether what is your size of the sample. Okay, these things are actually different. So inappropriate sampling frame, defective measuring device, non-respondents, indeterminacy principle, and natural bias. So all these things are there in the systematic bias. The next is the sampling error. So sampling error, that means uh, the sampling error you can reduce by taking more numbers or more number of samples, by taking the larger size sample. Okay, so if I say that if in any experiment, if you are doing some kind of analysis where you are getting just these 3 points, okay, then with these 3 points you cannot draw any conclusions. Okay, you can just say that it may follow a straight line, or it can be any curve. So this type of example actually I have given you a couple of more times. But if I say you have 20 points, okay, and all these 20 points are something like this, and something like this you are getting, suppose. Let me do it again. Okay, so if I say that you have these 3 points, but in later if I give you 20 points, so you see that so initially the one that you were predicting to be a straight line just for the 3 points, you can now be quite sure that it is actually a wavy pattern. Okay, so this type of thing is the sampling error. So these are the random variations in the sample estimates around the true population parameters. In case of a population, actually most of the time most people behave differently and they do different tasks. So if I am taking a survey of 100 people, it is possible that 50 of them or around half of them are different and half of them are different. So if somebody is slightly biased on a positive side and somebody is slightly biased on the negative side, then actually it can be actually zero. Okay, the error can be neutralized. But these things actually you can correct by taking the larger size of the sample. So sampling error can be measured for a given sample design and size. So we'll see actually some more details of the sampling error later. So the overall idea is that while selecting a sampling procedure, researchers must ensure that the procedure causes a relatively small sampling error. Okay, and also helps to control the systematic bias in a better way. Okay, so the difference is that if you have a larger size of the sample, then your sampling error will be reduced, but your systematic bias can be increased. Okay, so you have to be optimum in that also. If you are sure that there is no systematic bias, then it is very appropriate to take a larger size sample to get a detailed idea. For example, if I was doing this microscopic analysis, if I'm doing this microscopic analysis, and if I just take multiple samples from different locations of this beaker, right, and then I try and analyze the pattern, then I can be very sure that this sample represents the the correct characteristics of the bulk. So the sampling error can be reduced by taking the larger sample, or larger sample, that means the samples from same location or from different location depending on the study. Okay, so after this we'll come to the characteristics of a good sample design. So a sample design must be a representative design, so it must be a truly representative sample, and it must be such that which results in a small sampling error, and it must be such that it should the systematic bias can be controlled. The funds available for the research study should be, it should depend on the funds also. And it should be such that the sample study can be applied in general for the universe or the population with a reasonable level of confidence. Okay, so that means your whatever results you are getting from the sample, it should represent your population or your universe. So for example, if this sample is giving the characteristics of this population, then it is a correct one. But if your sample is outside this population, if it is not giving the characteristics, and there are some errors, multiple errors, some sampling errors are there and some systematic bias is there, then this is not correct actually. So it should be from the population. The different types of sampling design. So we discussed actually this in the last class. We did not explicitly discuss this slide, but we discussed about the probability sampling and the non-probability sampling. There is another term which is called the unrestricted sampling and the restricted sampling. So unrestricted sampling are the sampling where you just pick elements or pick the persons in a convenient way individually. Okay, so if you are picking people individually, then it is unrestricted sampling, but all other are the restricted sampling. So when each sample element is drawn individually from the population at large, then it is the unrestricted sample, and all other forms are the restricted sample. Okay, so unrestricted, that means you are individually you are picking. So the probability sampling and the non-probability sampling are the two types. And in this probability sampling, it can be a simple random sampling, or it can be a cluster sampling, it can be a systematic sampling, or it can be a stratified sampling, right? So only the simple random sampling is the unrestricted one. All other are the restricted one. And in the non-probability, the convenience sampling, okay, it is the only unrestricted one, and all other are the restricted one. So we have seen actually this in the last class, that so this slide we have seen in the last class. So probability sampling can be classified in this simple and random, systematic, stratified, and cluster. So this is actually unrestricted and all other are restricted. And in this, the convenience sampling is unrestricted. Unrestricted means you are picking the sample, uh, you are picking the uh, persons, or you are picking the characteristics of the sample, means individually. So there's a probability and non-probability. This we discussed in the last class. So simple random sampling, that means you have simply randomly selected someone from the sample and they should represent the bulk. Systematic sample, that means you have assigned the numbers to each person, and then you are saying that every third person I'll be selecting, so or every fifth person I'll be selecting, or every 10th person I'll be selecting. Okay, and I'll start from 2. Okay, I'll start from this point. Say this is 1 and this is 2. So I'll start from the second person. So this first person will be the second person, and then the third one, and then the third one, and then the third one. So like that. So you have to decide two things. One is the starting point, and the other is the interval. The third is a stratified sample, where you define the characteristics of the people, and you also define actually the variations among these characteristics. Okay, so suppose if I classify them into, say, male and female. So if, so say, blues are male and these greens are female candidates in any study, then I can further say that what is the age group of these female candidates and what is the age group of these male candidates. Okay, how many numbers are there, and further what is the variation within the strata itself. Is there any variation? If there is no variation, then you may adopt a different method. If there is variation within the strata, then you will adopt the different method of taking the sample. Okay, so cluster sample is something where you just divide into clusters. So in the last class, we have seen the example of offices. If I say that there are 20 offices, okay, with different types of employees of the same company, and you want to study any 3 office, then how will you select these office? So actually you will consider that all these offices are the clusters. Okay, and you are just taking any 3 offices for your study, and the all the employees of all the 3 offices you will study, and then you can draw the conclusion about the entire company having all these 20 offices. So these things actually we have seen in the last class. Uh, the next is the non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling is again the convenience sampling. So convenience sampling, that means if I am the researcher, I can actually choose some very nearby immediately available people for my study. Okay, if I'm doing in a class, and if I have something, then I can ask that, who wants to do this. Okay, so then the people who are interested in doing this is a voluntary response sample. So they will do the task. The purposive sample is, I explicitly selected uh, some particular candidates, or some particular, some particular persons for my study, and I said that, okay, these 5 candidates will go for this competition. Okay, something like this. And the snowball sample is, I am contacting the next immediately available guys, and they are contacting their immediately available contacts, and in this way we can actually make a snowball sample. So these all are non-probability sampling. Okay, they are so probability sampling are the random sampling, and this is something that we discussed actually. So the simple random is also random, and all these are actually random sampling techniques. Because again, I mean, in the systematic it's completely random. The stratified is also completely random, because if we know the characteristics of this data, then we can um, do the random sampling. And the cluster sampling is also a random sampling. But here all these things are actually non-random sampling. Okay, so it depends on the the person who is conducting the study. Okay, so you can see that this person is everywhere in all these types. Here actually there is no person who is monitoring these things. So this is a non-random. Okay, so these things actually we discussed in the last class. Now I want to discuss about some more examples. We have some time, so we can discuss. So so this is the first example, and in this example I'll be discussing about the method of proportional allocation. Okay, so for example, we have seen this stratified sample, and we have seen that. So we have seen that if I divide them into 5 groups, into male and female and say they are male candidates and they are female candidates, and I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 male candidates are there and 6 female candidates are there. And if I have to take a representative sample out of them, okay, and just if we take a look at this figure only, so if I have to take like 5 people out of it, so out of these 15, so total 15 candidates are there, and if I have to take a 5, if I have to take 5 people as a sample, then I'll definitely take 2 from this group and 3 from this group, then only it will represent the, it will be a proportional sample. Okay, so this is if you have some kind of a strata, then what you do, you take the representative or the proportional amount from that strata, and then you prepare the sample. So in this case, actually, we have ignored the fact that there can be some variance or some differences within the strata itself. Okay, we are considering that all these 9 male candidates are equal, and we are also considering that all these 6 female candidates are equal. We are not considering any further differences. It is possible that out of these 9 male candidates, it is possible that there are 2 children. Okay, and say they are like 3 or 4 years old, so they may not be of any use. Okay, so in this particular study, in any study, so effectively I'm taking 3 out of 7. Okay, because these 2 are of no use. So in the proportional sampling, I'm ignoring this fact that what is the variance in the strata itself. Okay, I'm assuming that all of them are the same and all of them are the same, and then I'm taking a sample out of it. So coming back to the example, so it's called the method of proportional allocation. Okay, so suppose Pi represents the proportion of the population included in the stratum I, and N represents the total sample size. The number of elements selected from the stratum I is N dot Pi. Okay, so maybe you will read it 2, 3 times, then you will understand it. But with the example, you can understand it easily. So suppose you have 8,000 people. Okay, for example, suppose you have 8,000 people, and you have to take a sample of 30 people. Okay, so out of these 8,000, you have to take a sample of 30, and these 8,000 people are divided into 3 strata. Okay, for example, uh, say N1, N2, N3. This strata may be based on the salary class, or it can be based on the any other factor. It can be rich, poor, it can be educated, uneducated, it can be anything. So for example, say 4,000 are BTechs, okay, and 2400 are MTech, and 1,600 are PhDs. Okay, and if I say that take a sample, give me a sample of 30 people out of them, so that the sample represents a representative one. Okay, now here I am not distinguishing that out of these 4,000 BTechs, what is the further variation. Okay, so all are BTech, so only this information is fine. All are MTech, only this information is fine. Okay, so the BTech, MTech, and PhDs are there, and I have to take 30 out of it. So what will I do? I'll use the method of proportional allocation. Proportional allocation, that means first I'll see that how much proportion they represent, and then I'll take this equivalent number of people from this bulk. So out of these 8,000, 4,000 are BTech. That means 50% of them are BTechs. Okay, so out of these 30 samples, actually 50% should be the BTechs. Okay, so I'll take 50% of them. That means the 15 person should go to this sample. Okay, then 2,400. Now this 2,400, if you take a proportional study, then you will come out that there should be 9 MTech, and there should be 6 PhDs. Okay, and if you just add all of them, then there will be 30, and this 30 actually represents the sample of this 8,000 population. Yeah, I think this is clear. Is it clear? Are you
Yes,
listening? ठीक है,
Yes, sir.
मतलब कि क्या उसमें कितना स्टेटा है, सो क्या उसमें जो है डिफरेंसेस है. इफ देर आर 4,000 BTech and 2,400 MTech and 1,600 PhDs, then I cannot simply take 30 from the BTech itself, or 30 from the MTech itself, or 30 from the PhD itself, because they will not represent my entire population. So I have to represent my entire population. And so similarly, from this data N1, 4,000, so we have P1, which is 50% actually, 4,000 by 800. So N1 is N dot P1, which is 30 of the total population, into the percentage, which is 15, and similarly 9, and similarly 6. So if you add all of them, then you will have 30 students which are there, and they will represent the entire population. So this is called the method of proportional allocation. Okay. So again, I'm saying that this method of proportional allocation is very good. And if some question is asked that solve using the method of proportional allocation, then you can simply take the proportional number of the persons from these different status to the sample. Now, if I say that this 4,000 people, if I say that suppose classify them into different categories. If I say that 4,000 are male and 2,400 are female and 1,600 are children, okay, then I have actually made it somewhat complex, because if I say that 4,000 are male, then male adults, okay, say male adults, and female adults and children. So if they 4,000 are male adults, then it can be anyone above, for example, say 18 years of age. Okay, 18 years of age. And it can be, there'll be, if someone is 90 years or 100 years or 95 years or 100 years old, then they will also be in this group. Okay, but so the meaning is that in this 4,000, actually we have a very large strata, very large variance, very large distribution. Okay, we cannot simply uh, take a representative or a proportional sample from this, right? We cannot just simply say that now take 15 out of this. So it is possible that you take all the 15 out of these 4,000 in the age of, say, 80 to 90. Okay, and they will not represent your entire male adult population. Okay, because you are taking very old people in your study. So if you have this kind of variation, then the next example will come into picture. And if you have this kind of standard deviation, so standard deviation is, that how much the thing is different from the mean. Okay, so if you have this kind of thing, in case you have the strata differ not only in size but also in the variability, then it is considered reasonable to take a larger sample from the more variable strata and a smaller sample from the less variable strata. Okay, so if I say that the children are, say, if I study all these 1,600 children, and if I say that all of them are from 10 to 12 years age, okay, then there is no variance in this. So I can take, if I have to take, means based on the calculation, if I have to take like 4, then I can actually all these 4 will represent the 1,600 population. Okay, but if there is a huge variation in this 4,000, then maybe the proportional 15 may not represent the huge population, and maybe I need to take 20, okay, to represent the whole population, or maybe I need to take 25 to represent the entire 4,000 population. So there is a strata within the strata. In that case, what we do, we use the optimal allocation, and this optimal allocation or the disproportionate sampling design, this is another thing. So if some kind of standard deviation is given, then you do this optimum allocation or the disproportionate design. So for example, if I say that a population is divided into three strata, say 5,000, 2,000, and 3,000. Okay, so total 10,000 people are there, and there are three different stratas. And also there is a standard deviation within the stratas, and the standard deviation is 15 in the first one. That means in the 5,000 you have 15 standard deviation, in the 2,000 you have 18 standard deviation, and in the 3,000 you have 5 standard deviation. Okay, so 15, 18, and 5. And you have to select a sample of size n is equal to 84. Then how will you select? So in this case, you cannot simply take the proportional values, but what you have to do is you have to actually design the disproportionate sampling or the optimum allocation scheme, and which should follow this equation actually. So this equation tells you that this n1 upon capital N1 upon capital N1 into sigma 1 is equal to n2 upon capital N into say sigma 2. And if now you will take the people using this type of equation where you will consider the standard deviations also. Okay, so if you just say that the standard deviation is the same, then it will simply lead to your previous proportional allocation scheme, where all the sigmas will get cancelled. But if you have the standard deviations, different standard deviations, then you can take in this way. So for example, let us see this problem. So if I say, so again the problem is written here. So if I say that 5,000, 2,000 and 3,000 people are there, and the standard deviations are 15, 18 and 5, and you have to select 84, then how will you do? So you will use this equation. If you take a look at these things a couple of times, you will actually understand that it is quite easy. So you will first take the n, okay, where n is the total number of sample that you have to take. Means in the total number in the sample. Ni is the strata population, and sigma I is the standard deviation of that strata. Okay, so Ni will be N1 will be 5,000 and sigma 1 will be 15. And upon the N1 sigma 1 plus N2 sigma 2 plus N3 sigma 3 and so on. So if we have only 3, then it will be limited up to only 3. Okay, plus N3 sigma 3. So in this case, the total sample size is 84, and then 5,000 is N1, and 15 is the sigma 1, and then upon 5,000 into 15 and 2,000 into 18, the N1 sigma 1 plus N2 sigma 2 plus N3 sigma 3. And if you say, then you have to take you have to take 50 people from this group of 5,000. Okay, 50 from 5,000. Okay, and if you take the next one, if you calculate in the same way, then you have to take 24 from 2000, and you have to take 10 from 3000, because the standard deviation in the third case is very less. It is just 5. In the second case, the standard deviation is very high. That means there is a lot of variance. So if you just see, then the total is 10,000, and out of these 10,000, the 5,000 are of first type, and out of these 5,000, actually you have taken 50. Okay, so out of 84, you are taking 50 from the first strata. Okay, so from 5,000, you are taking 50. From 2,000, you are taking 24, and from 3,000, you are taking 10, and the total becomes 84. So you see, more than 50% you have taken from this 5,000, which is actually 50% of the total population. ठीक है, इसका 50% कितना हुआ? 42. So ideally you should have taken 42, but you are taking 50, because of this variation, because of this standard deviation. Similarly, in this case, you are which is actually just 20% of the population, but your sample is a lot, means the person in the sample is quite large. And similarly, in this 3,000, you are just taking 10 people, because the standard deviation is very less. So depending on the standard deviation, you can do this using this optimum allocation scheme or disproportionate scheme. Okay, so I think this is also somewhat clear. I'll be sharing these slides so you can take a look at this. And there can also be a effect of the sampling cost. Okay, so sampling cost is another effect where you have to include this cost in this way. So along with this N1 and small n1 and capital N1, there is a sigma 1, which is the standard deviation, and if the sampling cost is also there, then you have to consider the sampling cost also. And in that case, you have to take the sample in this way. Okay, so the only thing that is under root cost is also coming into picture in this equation. And this is the last one, which will actually, I'll just take 2 more minutes. So sampling with probability proportional to size. Okay. So for example, suppose there are a number of departmental stores in 15 cities. Okay. So the following are the number of departmental stores in 15 cities. So in 15 cities you have 35, 17, 10, 32, 70, 28. Okay, all these number of departmental stores are there in each city. So in first city number when you have 35, in city number 2 you have 17, like this. And then you want to select the sample of 10 stores. Okay, out of all these stores, and you just want to select the 10 stores. Then how will you select? Now there is no strata, there is no uh, these are just the numbers. So in this case you have to select the probability proportional to size. Proportional to size, that means you first count that how many total number of stores are there. Okay, and then you have to select 10, so you just divide it by 10. And using cities as a cluster and selecting within the cluster proportional to size, how many stores from each city should be chosen. Okay, and then you see that the uh, which interval is falling on which city. So use a starting point of 10. So it is something like we discussed in this case. So as I said, that we are starting from number 2 and we are taking every third person. Okay, so this is the example of this actually. So first you do what you do the city number 1 to 15 and you write the number of departmental stores. Okay, and then you do a cumulative total. So cumulative total is 35 का, तो 35 हुआ, 17 और ऐड हो गया तो इसमें 52 हो गया. And then in this 52, if you add 10 more, it will be 62. If you add 32 more, it will be 94. If you add 70 more, it will be 164, and so on. So in total, if you add all these number of departmental stores, it comes out to be 500 number of stores are there. So how many you have to select? You have to just select 10 stores. Okay, so if you just have to select 10 stores. So what is the best way? You just select every fifth 50th store, right? So wherever you start, you take an interval of 50 stores and then you should be fine. So it is saying that use a starting point of 10. Okay, uh, in case the starting point is not mentioned, then you can actually select any one as the starting point. Okay, for example, in this case, if I say that start from 2, then you will start from 2. If I don't say anything, then you can start from 1 also. So you just take 1 and then you take the third one and then you take the third one, like this. So here the starting point is given, which is 10. So so you have to select 10 stores at the interval of 50. So the first store will be your from the city number 1. Okay, let me delete it. So your first store will be from city number 1 because this is the starting point. Okay, so this is the sample 10, that means the first store. And then the next is then all other are at the interval of 50. So if you add 50 into this, it will be 60. Okay, so this cumulative number is not coming into the second store, so this 60 is coming into the third store. So you have to take the next, this will be your second store of the sample. Then you take 110th and 160th. So 110 and 160, they all belong to this store number 5. So there will be no one from the store number 4 and in the store number 5, because store number 4 is up to 94 only, and your next target is 110. So 110 and 160 both belong to this store. So this will be your third and fourth store. Okay, and in this way, if you keep on doing, so the next is 210. So you see that 210 is not falling in this fifth city. Okay, so you have to jump to the seventh city. So in this way, you actually take the 10 stores. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Do you have any questions in this? Is it simple? Someone wants to join or what? Acha. Okay, so actually this is the last slide. So do you have any questions in these problems? So I think the first problem is quite simple. You have to just do the proportional allocation. The second is also quite simple, because if you have variance within the strata, then you have to take into consideration the standard deviation. And if you have further any other factors such as the cost, then the cost is actually included in this way. Isha. Then the cost is included in this way, and the last is this, where if it is called the probability proportional to size. So here there is no strata, there is nothing, but it depends that what is the size. So total size is 500 if you just add all the stores, and if you have to select 10 stores, then at an interval of 50 you can choose, and the starting point is given 10. So you will see that where these points are falling, where the points are falling 10 and 60 and 110 and 160 and all those, all these points are falling, and then you select the stores out of those cities. So that's it actually. If you have any questions, you can ask. If you don't understand this, you can ask. I am here for some more time. Did you get this, by the way? ये सब समझ में आया लास्ट के जो भी मैंने डिस्कस किया? Yes? No?
Yes, sir.
And it's actually quite simple. I'll say that you just read it once again. I'll share the slides, and then you will understand actually this. This is actually quite simple, and for more details, you can refer to this Kothari book. So I'm following the Kothari book only. So again, I'm saying that this is based on the proportional allocation. The example two, which is this problem, which is based on the optimum allocation, and the third one, the third example that we have seen is the proportional to size. Okay, so from means on where these samples are falling. So you have to select the uh, stores in those cities. So actually, you don't, in this particular example, you don't have to visit the city number 2, the city number 4, the city number 6, and the city number 8, and the city number 13, and city number 15. Even if you visit all the other cities, you will have your very good sample. Okay, so that's it. If you have anything to ask, feel free to ask. I am here for some more time. But if you don't have anything to ask, then you can leave the class.